Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a concept that, well, it sounds pretty simple on the surface, but it is actually incredibly difficult to master. We're talking about the ultimate art of balance. If you've ever felt totally torn between taking charge of a situation and stepping back to let your team take the reins, then you know exactly the tension we're talking about. We are going to dive deep into how the most effective leaders navigate extreme pressures by finding their perfect equilibrium. Okay, let's dive into this. Former Navy SEAL Jocko Willink makes a really bold claim here. He and his co-author, Leif Babin, have taught these exact principles to thousands of people, and they've seen it vastly improve a team's productivity, efficiency, and overall effectiveness. So today, we are breaking down exactly how that undeniable organizational impact actually happens. The secret to that kind of effectiveness is detailed in their follow-up book, The Dichotomy of Leadership. Willink and Babin, who are both highly decorated retired Navy SEAL commanders, realized something absolutely crucial. Leadership just isn't about hardline, uncompromising rules. It's the ultimate guide to navigating everyday leadership paradoxes. They outline 12 core dichotomies, basically proving that to lead and win, whether you're literally on the battlefield or sitting in a boardroom, you have to master the art of balance. Here's our roadmap for this journey. 1. The extreme ownership baseline. 2. Why leadership requires balance. 3. Part 1, balancing people. 4. Part 2, balancing mission. 5. Part 3, balancing yourself. And finally, 6. The complexity theory connection. Section 1, the extreme ownership baseline. To truly grasp the dichotomy, we first have to understand the baseline. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these foundational lessons were forged in the brutal reality of the Battle of Ramadi. During a really tragic friendly fire incident, Jocko Willink realized that, as the commander, he had to take absolute, total blame. There was literally no one else to point a finger at. And that is the very essence of extreme ownership. The leader unequivocally owns all outcomes. But it also requires decentralized command, which means empowering your junior leaders along with cover and move to ensure mutual support across teams. All of this creates a culture of ultimate accountability. Section 2. Why leadership requires balance. So those baseline principles, they're incredibly powerful. But over time, Willink and Babin started noticing a pretty dangerous trend. After the massive success of their first book, they saw their teachings being completely misapplied and taken to the absolute extreme. People started thinking extreme ownership meant micromanaging every single tiny detail, or that discipline meant complete and total rigidity. That's exactly why they had to publish The Dichotomy of Leadership as a necessary successor, to course-correct those misapplications. Their core thesis in the follow-up is beautifully simple, but man, it's incredibly hard to execute. It's the idea that leadership just isn't black and white. It is a constant, ongoing battle to find equilibrium. True leadership rarely requires extreme attitudes. Instead, it demands a delicate, constantly shifting balance between opposing forces. Section 3. Part 1, Balancing People. Let's get into the messy, human side of leading teams. This brings us right to the tension between owning it all and empowering others. Yes, as we discussed, the leader takes ultimate accountability and must provide crystal clear guidance. But you also have to step back. You absolutely must give your subordinate leaders the freedom to make decisions and actually lead their own segments of the mission. Because if you dictate every single move, you aren't leading, you are micromanaging. There's also a pretty brutal reality we have to face when it comes to business performance. Most underperformers don't actually need to be fired. They just need to be mentored and led. A leader has to be loyal to their people, right? Yet, if you pour endless resources into someone who simply cannot or will not improve, you're severely neglecting the rest of the team. To be truly faithful to the mission, sometimes you just have to make the incredibly tough call to let an individual go. Section 4, Part 2, Balancing Mission. Now let's shift to how a leader approaches executing strategic goals. And this brilliantly illustrates the line between action and disaster. A leader's default mindset should always be aggressive. Don't wait to act, capitalize on opportunities, and smash through obstacles. But there is a razor-thin line between being aggressive and being completely reckless. Take the famous Building 94 incident in Ramadi, for example. The SEALs wanted to aggressively assault a heavily fortified insurgent stronghold. But upon further review, charging in without heavy armor support would have been reckless, ignoring some very severe threats. Thankfully, prudent counsel prevailed, and they averted a total disaster. Then there's the training paradox. Train hard, but train smart. How do you simulate realistic, devastating challenges without completely crushing your team's morale? Well, it requires pushing the team well beyond their comfort zone while keeping a hyper focus on fundamentals and repetition. And a quick reality check here. Claiming we don't have time or we don't have the budget is never a valid excuse for poor preparation. Section 5, Part 3, Balancing Yourself. Let's turn the lens inward. Internally, a leader has to navigate being focused versus being detached. You definitely need to be engaged enough to know what is actually happening on the ground. But if you get sucked too far into the weeds and start obsessing over minor details, you completely lose control of the big picture. You have to detach. Elevate your perspective so you can see the entire strategic landscape while maintaining just enough focus to ensure the job actually gets done. A truly great leader drops their ego. They are humble enough to accept constructive criticism, and they actively embrace new ideas from their subordinates. However, and this is key, that humility cannot degrade into passivity. When standard operating procedures are vital, or when the mission risks are glaringly clear, a leader must stand absolutely firm and resolute. Section 6, the complexity theory connection. Let's move to and see how this builds. It turns out these gritty, boots-on-the-ground combat principles are actually backed by rigorous scientific theory. A really fascinating study published in the Defense Studies Journal analyzes Willink and Babin's practical framework through an academic lens, and it completely validates their lessons. This academic lens is called Complexity Leadership Theory, or CLT. Basically, it details how organizations survive and thrive in highly chaotic environments by balancing strict operational constraints with entrepreneurial adaptation. Sounds familiar, right? It perfectly mirrors the exact same tensions and balancing acts the SEALs outline in their books. When we map the SEAL principles directly onto CLT, the fit is just striking. The operational systems formality and discipline, that's really just another name for strict standard operating procedures. The entrepreneurial system's focus on innovation, that aligns perfectly with decentralized command. The really fascinating takeaway here is that strict discipline actually provides the safe boundaries that enable true freedom and adaptation. So the crucial point is how theory and practice converge beautifully right here. This academic connection proves that the whole discipline equals freedom mantra isn't just a catchy phrase for a t-shirt. It scientifically reconciles the paradox of needing control while simultaneously giving up control. It gives robust academic support for these combat lessons, and it realistically counterbalances the romantic idea that complex environments just need a loose, structuralist collective command. No way. You absolutely need the discipline to empower the freedom. We've journeyed all the way from the intense life-or-death pressure of combat to the highest levels of academic organizational theory. So I want to leave you with a question to really ponder. Where does your own leadership currently tilt too far to one extreme, and how will you restore that balance? Take a serious audit of your style this week and start leading with equilibrium. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.